Welcome to the Bleep Bulimia podcast, part 3 with Benjamin, the Dream Wizard on handwriting analysis. Can we come to the final thing here? Where is this?
Yeah.
Oh no, to your signature. Oh no, and I wrote, we talked about there was the physical activity, but we talked about enjoying your solitude and being specific about friends.
Well, I did want to, before we go too far, I mean, do you need to keep this short or, like, do we need to move ahead or, okay, good deal. I don't want to drag it out. No. I just wanted to know if you were trying to move us closer to the end because you wanted to keep it short.
No,
or
I'm just having fun finding out what you're thinking about.
Good deal. Well, no, and then I'm very, as I said, very systematic. If we skip a line, I'm like, I need to go back. We skip the line. So I'm looking at the letter you sent me, and I'm like, let's take them point by point. Which is, there's nothing wrong with bouncing around, but I'll forget. Like, did we cover that? I don't know. So the next line of the you said the physicality, physically you have a strong desire for physical activity. This one I went, I'm pretty lazy. I wonder what this means. So maybe we could start with what on there gave you that indication, and what does it mean in terms of the handwriting analysis explanation for physical activity?
Okay, so that's the Y, and if you look at the Y, and it's got a very large
like
and open lower circle, and you have a couple of them that are like that. Now, to understand, when you talk about physical desire, it's a desire for physical. It's not saying that you might be lazy.
But you are
there
active,
might be a desire there, but the desire can be physical, and as far as running, doing that, or it could be as simple as you'd like to get out and do gardening, or it could also be sexual. So those are the physical. So, but there's a desire for that. It's not like, whoa. I mean, you're lazy, but I don't know. Maybe it's wrong, but that's
no. That's why I wanted to get into the shades, because I think there's a shade of meaning where it's true. I rather than say desire for physical activity, which makes me think you want to be constantly in motion. Physicality is not always motion. I'm very tactile oriented. I would say it's touch. It's physical touch, intimacy. It is doing things with my hands being busy. I do enjoy yard work. I like the result of a freshly mown lawn. I think it's beautiful. And in some degree, there's a Zen-like quality to it, where you get in a zone, and there's you go from highly attentive to every step and every motion and all the the sweat and all this, and then all of a sudden all that fades away, and all you see is lines in the grass, and you enter a flow with this mowing thing. So I think if we view it as, rather than I have a desire to be physically active, I have a desire to be tactilely engaged with whatever I'm doing. And I move my hands around a lot when I talk too. So talk with my hands. And maybe that's a shade of meaning. What's that?
Do you have any Italian in you?
Could be. Well, slight little bit, mostly Scottish and German, but
yeah, because my dad was Scottish. But my mother is French Italian, and it's funny when the girls all get together, we're all talking, and it's all
lots of gestures. Yeah,
I don't do it on the podcast too much, but you see me doing this sometimes.
Well, if anyone watches me during my as I'm talking and all this describing, now I'm conscious of it. I'm doing it, but I do these gestures while we're talking. I'm like, let's hold out the thing and look at it and turn it around. I'm manipulating objects in the air, and I'm like, it's like we look at the big picture. I'm like, I have to draw a big circle around the thing I'm trying to understand, and I'm like, you were up here, but now you're down here, and I gotta act it out in a lot of ways, and I try not to be conscious of that, because then I start doing it. This is me pushing it out of my mind.
But no, I think it's great when people speak with their hands. I think it's a lot more. I think it's more inviting when people do that. I really do, and I'm fascinated by when people do the like I do it too. That goes like this, like when I'm talking about the car, it goes like this and this way too.
Oh yeah, and it's a very different interactive style too, because you have some people who are very rigid posture, and they never move. Their
Hands in
head
their
doesn't even
pocket.
move.
Yep.
Their head doesn't even move. They don't tilt it to the side or the other. They don't even lift an eyebrow. It's just I'm like that's kind of boring. That's what is that? It's a talking head. Might as well be a still image. Yeah, I'm a little more descriptive and animated and move around a lot. So I have a very
Like
it's
it.
very yeah. So if we tease out the shades of like being physically active, I just like to sit. I would sit more often if it was more comfortable. I have a necessity for movement in terms of as soon as we're done here, I'm going to go get up and walk around because I need to, because I just can't sit still for
Yeah.
long periods of time. And we're not supposed to, but so there's nothing wrong with that. But it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, one might say that if you have no drive to move, there's probably something wrong in some ways.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, like I
Could come in
said in
various
here,
modes. You
this
did
could
say,
come in various modes,
yeah.
like the desire for physical activity. But you definitely have it because you have more than one Y with that big circle at the bottom.
Yeah. And I kind of, I've settled on a handwriting style where I distinguish my Y's from my G's because a lot of my G's are open topped as well. But then I do the loop back. I close the loop on the G. The Y is open, the G is
Yes.
closed so that I can, and I think I remember having that been a conscious choice because I'm like, I need to distinguish these letters from each other so I can read my own damn handwriting. And I might have kind of gotten into that as a purposeful thing, and now it's become automatic. I think.
Yeah, just make sure though that either your Ys or your Gs don't end up with at the very end of it, it's close to doing that, like, but it doesn't do it. So you don't want the very end. Like, okay, so if you go to 93 and you see shy guy, that's on the second paragraph that you lined on the
Okay,
right.
yeah.
So you
Oh yeah,
see
yeah,
how
shy guy.
it's going across to the like so basically Benjamin has it coming down and across and back, but it's almost looping down, almost looping down.
Almost coming down at the very end.
Do you see that?
Yeah, yeah.
It isn't, but it almost is.
What does that say?
So if it did loop down, that's fear of success, fear of failure, sorry,
Mm.
fear of failure. So you're not quite there. Like I was looking at that and I'm going, nah, he doesn't have it coming down, but it's pretty darn close.
I would say that's probably a frequent concern of mine is
Okay.
whether I'm going to be successful. I start every dream interview knowing or not knowing that I'm going to be able to give the dreamer any answer at all. And that's which is part of why I say the answers aren't in me. We're going to try and figure this out together. It might happen, it might not. I'm going to try to be very realistic with my expectations. So that might be it. I've got this right on the edge of fear of
It is
failure.
there, but it doesn't go down. So it's not
Yeah,
that
but
you're
I'm still
there
going to
yet, but
try. I'm
there's
still
like
going
a
to, I'm not going to let
hesitation.
that
It's
stop
like,
me. Yeah. I think that's an important thing too. It's that determination, not, this is probably
yeah,
going to be a horrible disaster. I'm not going to let that stop me. That's kind of where I'm at. I love the optimism of the pessimist, which is you have to be, I mean, you have to be an optimist to be a pessimist in the world because you're still trying.
oh, I totally agree. I mean, I have a, oh gosh, if she watches this, she's going to hate me. But my daughter is a pessimist, and she calls herself a realist. But a lot of realists are just pessimists, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned.
If you can't really
And
tease out of the middle ground, third option. Yep.
and yeah, and I'm going, but I'm an optimist. Like, I mean, I went through a lot of stuff too, but I keep going. And yeah, I don't like a lot of things are going around, but I don't focus on that. I focus on the positive because if I focused on the negative, I probably would be, going to my doctor saying I'm depressed and then take all the pills he gives me. Like, I mean, it's
Yeah.
horrible. But I
True.
don't. I mean, I look at my mom, how excited I am that I'm with her. I mean, my dad passed away. That was difficult. But again, looking at the positive, looking at I'm with my mom and what happens and stuff like that. And there was a realist that said to me, okay, this is really disgusting. I hope my mother never sees this. And I may just cut this out because it's wrong. I had two people tell me, oh, when your mother dies, you're going to be well off. And I looked at
Wow.
them and I said, how effing dare you, excuse my language, my father just died. I'd rather have my mom alive. And who knows, I'm probably going to die before her because she's a whole bunch of like energy, ball of energy. And I'm
Yeah.
going, but what is it with people? And I'm going, that's sick. Don't say
Yeah.
that.
I could look at it and say that might be whether or not.
Oh,
So I can look at it neutrally and say that might be technically factually correct, and then I might also say that's not how I want to get rich. That's I'm
right.
not looking for that outcome.
And one guy, he's a friend, but not always. And I said, stop saying that. I
Frenemy.
said, I just lost my father, but it's the truth. It's reality. I'm a realist. I go, but you're not understanding. You're hurting me right now because the
Yeah.
last thing I want is to lose my mother. I just lost my father.
Yeah.
How can you be so unemotional and so realist that there's no emotion in there?
Yeah, that might be one of my is just stupidly autistic things. They would pop into my head. Oh, you're gonna be rich when your mom dies, and then I go, "Wow, that was horribly insensitive," and you're crying.
And that's when my girlfriend said that. So like the male guy though kept going. He goes, but it's reality. And I said, what? And I hung
Yeah.
up on him. I'm going, you're not getting it. You don't say that to people. And then
Mm,
my girlfriend said to me, my adopted sister, she goes, I am so sorry. That was really insensitive. Boom, she caught it.
yeah. Yeah, I'm not always up on
Right.
that, the emotional content of things until I get a little feedback from someone going, not cool, man, not cool. I'm like, oops,
Not
I'm sorry.
cool, not cool,
Yeah.
not cool. Don't be telling me right now. My biggest thing is I'm Mother's Day. It was her and I. We ordered
Mm,
pizza. We had a great time. We
there you
sat on the
go.
deck.
Nice.
That's more important.
Well, this is a great transition into I enjoy my solitude. Where was that? Which thing was? Well, first, let me say the connection. Relationships are hard. People are difficult to
Yeah.
understand, and relationships are extremely stressful for me to manage. I'd rather just be alone, and then I don't feel lonely. I'm just like, this is
Right.
better. It's just peace and
Yeah.
quiet, and I don't feel
Yeah.
a lack. And again, this is one of those things where it's we humans have a need for socialization. It would be awful for me if no one cared, but it would be more awful if too many people cared and they wouldn't stop blowing up my phone and I can't have a moment's peace. I would just disappear, like for real. I would just smash my phone. I'm like, leave me alone. I can't do this. It's too much. So talking to people, interacting with people, being present for
Yes.
people, it takes a lot of mental energy and bandwidth. So I do my mode is peace and quiet, wizard's cave on the mountain far far away. I got to do my thinking. So what was the handwriting element that,
Okay.
that
So
brought that
this
up?
is the interesting thing. You've got three Ys and three Ys that are consistent,
Mm,
not just one, two, or three times. They're all consistent. So you got the big circle one. You've got the one that does kind of like a G ending to it. And
mm.
then you've got about three or four of them that just have straight down, no
Yep, I see
movement.
that way, like with shy guy right there. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
and
me.
highway when
Just
I wrote
let me be
highway.
alone. Yeah.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
and that's
Yep.
why the one I do the whys like that all the time because I love being alone. Poor mom, because I love being with her, but I have that moment that I just love being, on my own. And she goes, so where have you been? No,
Yep,
she doesn't.
I've been
She's
alone.
awesome. She knows she likes being alone too, but I worry about her because dad just left and she's crying a lot.
Oh
So I
yeah,
have to make sure that I'm up there and hanging out with her more because she really does need, because she had dad there all the time, right?
yeah,
So,
and that's its own thing.
and
You,
it's
you can
not an
even be
effort, but when I come downstairs, it's like me time. Yeah.
well for sure, and that's another thing too. It's like there's a lot of things to tease out with the idea of needing solitude. One of them is the ability to sit with someone in comfortable silence. My wife and I can do that, and we may not speak all day, and then for 5 minutes we have a chat in the kitchen as we're passing by each other, and that's it. We're good. And and that if let's say I do not see her from sun up to sundown, and until the following day, she's here. We're not really
Yeah.
alone, neither one of us,
Yeah.
even though we're not in constant contact or interaction. For me, that would be stressful too if we didn't have that good fit of both of us completely comfortably not interacting, even in the same rooms doing our own thing. No pressure to be entertaining or to have something interesting to say,
Right.
just existing.
Yeah.
So and then just broadly, I mean, I don't know if we mentioned this before. I've said it a lot. I can never remember if I've said it on a podcast, but the difference between true introversion and extroversion, and we look at that behaviorally, and a lot of people, again, I'm using that phrase, that there's a popular misconception that, well, extroverts are attention seekers. They like people to look at them. And then extroverts are, or introverts are shy. They're socially, now there is social anxiety and there is exhibitionism, and these things are on different scales for different reasons. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying attention. There's nothing wrong with being shy. Just descriptive quality. So, but the real difference that they've teased out over the years seems to be that for extroverts, they get off a long day of work, they're exhausted physically and mentally, and more than anything, they need to go hang out with their friends and recharge and have a good time, and they get a
Oh
second
gosh.
wind. Yeah, oh God, is right. And that's, no, me too. I get off a long, hard day of effort, and God, I just want to be alone. I need no interaction. That's just more stress. And even if I love you to death and I would love to hang out with you if I had the mental energy, not today, not now. I got to go be alone. And it's kind of how we individually, our modes of recharging that battery. Introverts need isolation to recharge. And
So,
extroverts need
but
interaction to recharge.
would you put yourself, so I would see myself more as an extrovert, introvert,
Mm,
extrovert. I don't know which comes first, but equally, because at work now, so I was on my own for 2 years with COVID and I was fine, but I would be on doing, Zooms, and that kept me happy. But
yeah.
I didn't see anyone for pretty well 2 years and I was okay with it.
Yeah.
Um, but I did like to interact, but I did need to interact with people, even if it was just on Zoom.
Sure.
So, but now I love my job and I love being around people. In fact, I moved myself to reception just so I can introduce them into the company, because I believe a receptionist is important, even if I'm a
Absolutely.
delivery person. I don't like it, and they didn't have a receptionist, so I moved myself there. Um, but the long thing of the short, I love the people who come in. Some of them even know me from my previous job. But at the end of the day, so I love interacting with people, but at the end of the day, yeah, I'm not going out to party. I'm going to go and sit
For
downstairs
sure.
with my dogs.
Yeah. And I would say it's very rare for any person to be 100% of one thing or the other on a spectrum. And
Yeah,
a lot of human behavior tendencies are on a spectrum. So there's a lot of folks that are very balanced in their introversion, extroversion. And some of the, again, going back to that, like the golden age of the late 1800s, early 1900s, when they were figuring these things out, they even then they thought that you want the proper mix. You don't want an excess of extroversion or introversion gets you into trouble. So you need a good balance. I think all of us are a mix of both. Absolutely. Even people that are heavily introverted need a little bit of social interaction so that it's not isolating. That's a
yeah,
very, there's solitude and there's isolation, and they're not really the same thing. Um, and then even extroverts need some time alone. We just do. But I would say for most people, it's going to be heavier 60-40, one way or the other, in general. And then there's some people that
yeah.
are like 20-80, and, but most of us are probably towards the middle. I'm probably a little more introverted than most. I'm probably on that 80-20 side of introversion, of like, I can be alone for a
Oh
week and talk
wow.
to no one, and I'm perfectly fine. Complete isolation, not a problem. Now, I do want my entertainment. I wouldn't want to be without a book or something to read or a project to work on. I got to be busy, but my, but I don't need people present for that. And I don't know,
True.
maybe I get a little bit of interaction with the level of social interaction I need is a cat to pet once in a while, a dog in my lap. That's fine. There's another
Right.
living creature nearby. I don't know if in a rocky wasteland, I'm just existing. If that would be quite satisfactory. I might need more interaction with people if I had less pets, maybe. But I like the level
Well,
of
that's what
pet
I'm
interaction.
saying,
Speaking of being quiet in a room with someone, they don't say a word.
right?
Yeah.
That was my thing through COVID. Oh my goodness. Thank God for my cats and dogs. Like, that's all I needed. Like,
Yeah.
I'd get on the phone with people and I would talk with people sometimes, but I am one of the few people that I think was excited that it happened, not excited about the fact that I could be home and alone. And when you went
Yeah.
out, no one was there. It's not
Yeah.
meaning about the COVID thing, but you know what I'm saying? It was like, wow, there's not a lot of people on the road. And when you go, I didn't like going into the stores because it freaked me out because of the, empty shelves,
Yeah.
and I hated wearing the mask, but there were no lineups.
Speaking of my being tactilely oriented, the mask on my face drove me nuts. It made me angry. I just having that thing on
Oh,
my
I
face that I
couldn't stand
I
it.
want to take it off. So yeah. Now, some
Oh,
people have a what's called misophonia. You hear sorry anyone out there, but you hear this sound? People
oh,
chewing. Oh God, just rage. That's misophonia. You get this involuntary emotional reaction to that. That was with me with the tactile, with the face. God, I hated
oh,
every second of it.
really?
Oh, it's awful, the worst. But there's a funny thing you said about this, like the COVID thing. Oh, I have an excuse to stay home. There's speaking of introverts and extroverts, there are few things as few experiences as pleasant to an extrovert as canceled plans, or an introvert as canceled plans. Like you have this expectation, you're gearing yourself up for it, girding your loins to go into battle, and someone calls and says, "I can't make it." You're like, "Oh, thank God." I don't
My
have to
God,
go. I
right?
was ready to
I
do this,
know.
but and that's kind of how I was with the whole COVID stay in home isolation thing was like perfect. Extroverts go, this is my jam. I do this all the time. You mean I don't have to go anywhere? Oh no. And then it made me think of the Brer Rabbit and Brer Fox. Oh no, don't throw me into the briar patch. uh, yeah.
You're right though, eh? Like the extroverts, that just like they were like, oh God. Woo!
And I feel bad for them. It's like that's really
I do too, but
it's like
I just
restricting their
relaxed and
oxygen. Yeah.
yeah, no, I just it was it was scary, don't get me wrong. I feel the same things as everybody else, but being home alone was not an issue to me. And I lived on my own then. I didn't live with my mom.
Yeah.
So I had my dogs and my cats. And whenever I just ordered my food in, like somebody came and dropped it off and I paid for it. That was,
Yeah.
and it's weird. And my mom says, because I talk to her a lot now, and she goes, "You must have missed people." I go, "No, I just enjoy being with you." I didn't.
Yeah.
I
And
didn't.
there's also the difference between, just being around people and being around our favorite people or our relatives or, significant others and stuff like that. There's different
Yeah.
relationships involved there. I would be perfectly happy living out in the country where, I went to town once a week and that's the only people I ever saw. That kind of life is well suited
Yeah.
for. But some other people are like, I need an apartment building full of people. I need constant noise and activity.
I
That's how I
know.
feel good.
No.
And so I felt bad for them, during that time period. They were not getting what they need, unfortunately. So, um,
Yeah, that's true.
but
That's true. And I mean, you had the elderly people too. I had an elderly guy living upstairs from me, but no, he was one of me, so he really didn't care either.
yeah,
But when it started breaking out, we would sit apart from each other up, and we had some company. So as much as we were introverts, so to speak, extroverts, introverts, but he enjoyed my company and I enjoyed his, and we just sat further away from each other on his deck, and then I would go back
yeah,
downstairs. He was just upstairs for me. And that was nice. And it was just a
there you
couple
go.
hours and you're done. You go back down to the dogs and
For
but
sure.
yeah, it's weird. I don't know what I am. I really do like people. I don't like when people say I don't like people. I like people. I just sometimes have my days where I don't want to be around them. I don't I my
Yeah,
dogs, there's no too much time or too little.
yeah,
Like I think there's too little time. My
yep.
cats too,
The
but
only
with people,
hassle,
yeah, I think you're right. Rebooting, right? Like reboot, what we
yeah,
talked about. It
you got to
just
refresh. Oh yeah, I think that was
refresh,
before we like started the official episode. The idea of
right?
so I had to reboot my machine. It wasn't detecting my audio. So and I think that's kind of a perfect analogy for what we do with the sleep is a little bit of a reboot.
Yeah,
So and I'm not probably not it's not an original thought. I'm not the first person to ever think that, but I think it is an important thing for people to understand about the necessity of sleep. It's like this isn't really optional. You can't just go short on sleep forever or skip sleep at all. We know for sure you become psychotic, but we don't know why. That's a very interesting.
uh,
There's a lot of theories out there. We don't know why. not sleeping leads to distorted thinking and hallucinations, but it certainly does. We've got to, yeah, there's something about that reboot, about that process of physically, like again, late 18, early 1900s, they used to think of psychological problems as a problem with the nerves, which is where we get a nervous disorder, and then neurotic. It was the phrasing in the late 18, early 1900s around Freud's time, and it's been evolving since then. They used to think of it as a physical problem with the nerves of the body, because we discovered nerves and we're like, oh, these control everything. We got reflexes and all this different stuff. But our conception of it has changed since then, which is fascinating. I love the study of, well, this knowledge, acquire knowledge with the study of language. How do we get here? Why do we call these things what we call them?
Right?
Yeah.
I've thought of that. And why are there so many different languages, and why are they written differently? And why are those words from here and how? Like, there's so many things that nobody's answered.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
Mystery.
it's also very interesting that when we look at innate human capacities, the fact that different languages exist means that multiple different cultures evolved written, verbal, and then written communication
Yeah.
independently of each other, completely independently in their own style and form, and what made sense to them and what caught on
Oh,
culturally. Go ahead.
wait, wasn't there a biblical thing about that where everybody what I can't remember that, but they all
Mm,
like there was like a curse that if you didn't something and everyone
yeah,
would go off.
the Tower of Babel, I think, right?
That's it. I was thinking
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
that. The
yeah,
Tower of Babel. I was thinking of that. I thought,
yeah.
did I have it right? Do I have it right? Because it's been a while.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very fascinating story. I mean, a lot of people focus on a lot there. Man, that's my verbal tick today. A lot of people. Um, what I mean is there's, pop culture understanding of it. Uh, the curse of different languages. It it's an interesting misunderstanding of, I think, biblical stories. And I had the same misconception for years and years, and people going, whoa, so literally guy like snapped his fingers and made everyone speak gibberish to each other, which
Right.
is where we get the, gibber. Anyway. Um, but it's more like what would happen if you intended to create the largest, most multicultural city center ever built, and it was your intent to do so, and you bring people from all the different parts of the world. You're going to have a problem with communication. They have different languages, they have different customs. There's an inherent cultural conflict that comes with, well,
Yes.
we believe this and do it this way, and you believe that and do it that way, and they are not the same, and they cannot exist together without
Yeah.
butting heads. But we could do, what's a great example of, I'm
I was
trying to
just
think
gonna
of
say
a
something really
not,
quickly about
yeah, yeah,
though.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say quickly, language wise though, with our Google translators and stuff, it's not gonna be as much of one, but when you're
Sure.
talking about culture, absolutely culture. I
Yeah.
mean, I lived in Turkey for 4 years as a kid, and and culture, and we deal with in Canada, of course, we're mosaic, so we have all kinds,
Yeah.
and the cultures are different, and
Yeah.
to say that there's not I hate discrimination, but misunderstandings within the cultures, absolutely. Because
Yeah,
we go, hey,
absolutely.
we were brought up this way, you're brought up that way. I don't agree with that, and yet you don't agree with me. And I mean, we have to
Yeah,
learn to accept it, but it's tough to accept some of the things.
for sure. Yeah, no, and that's in the miscommunications are not often in the words, but in like the meaning
No,
and the intent. So we get into a
yeah,
situation. I heard this guy told a story. He went to jail for a little bit of time for something. I can't remember what it was. It was nothing serious. It was something stupid. He was being a dumb kid, and yeah, he broke the law. And so they like, well, you gotta go to jail for a while. And he's like, all right, be a culpa. And while he was in there, he was making friends with people, nice guy, not looking for trouble. And someone was telling him a story about something that was important to them. And he responded by saying, I hear you. And the guy got unreasonably angry. He's like, you what, mother? And yeah, now you're having the same reaction that he did, which is, I don't even know what I said. Well, in this guy's culture that he grew up in, and this was an American fellow, but maybe more of a street style gang life, something like that.
Yeah.
You tell someone, I hear you. That's like saying, I don't give a shit. Oh, I hear you. Whatever. It's like whatever. What he wanted to
Oh,
hear you say was, I feel you. So that was a more that
ah.
means I'm listening. I get where you're coming from. I care. To say I hear
Or
you was
like
more like just
avatars, I see you.
yeah. So
Yeah.
what am I communicating with the phrase? The words don't matter. It's what the person understands as the meaning of that particular word and that particular phrase in the
Yeah.
context of the social interaction. So yeah, and then that's where culture plays a big part. It's like you can translate the
Yeah.
words just fine, but
Yes.
what is it? What does it mean? It's like the subtlety of sarcasm. We were talking about that with me, being a little more sarcastic with people. Like if I try to be sarcastic and someone takes me seriously, like they miss the point, and it changes the meaning completely. It goes from
Yeah.
I'm being silly and teasing you because I respect you to I'm being mean and condescending because I dislike you, and it's
Yeah.
same words, and maybe even delivered in the same tone, and they just that
There's
miscommunication.
something
And
that
that's
you can
yeah.
say to me or something that you can say to my sister, and the way that I take it, I might go, "Oh, you're funny." And then she might take it, "Oh my God." Like
Yeah, that's rude.
it's literally could even like this close.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm definitely a person that doesn't enjoy practical jokes. I don't want to be I don't want to deal with that. That's not respectful. That's actively
no,
disrespectful to me. So, but then again, if you like that and that's how you get along with your other best friend, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a moral question. It's like I don't like it. So
that just reminds me of the TikTok where they keep blowing up each other with
the
like
balloons.
sparkles and they
Yeah.
find, and I'm going, I don't think I could live in a household where every time I come in, I gotta see if I'm gonna be blown up with a balloon with like,
Yeah,
foam in it. Oh my God.
exactly. I mean,
God, God
if that
bless
became
them.
a
I mean,
thing and
I
that's a
know,
game they want to play, yeah.
and they're making money off of it being on
Mm,
TikTok, so it's good for them. But oh my goodness,
that too.
that would just have you sitting there going, "Hey man, I'm heart
No,
attack age now. Please don't do that."
I need to be able to relax and let down my guard and be like, you're just going to get me every time because after a while I'm going to give up. I'm not even really
Right?
playing anymore.
I'm
You
gonna
want to
not care.
whatever.
Okay, bye.
Yep. um,
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit me at bleepbulimia.com.